everyone. Today we have another Honda compactor here. Just got a couple things out of the garage, so we have some time and space to work on it. I have a feeling though it's going to be a project that to put to the side. The reason why, that's bolted on, but as you can tell, it's not working out too well. So what ended up happening is, because this is a plate compactor, naturally it's going to experience a little bit of rumble, put it that way. That rumble broke the tank. The unfortunate part about it is that it also broke the little section of the actual, I don't want to say crankcase, but the actual block, there we go, that supports the tank. Oh, hi there, garage puppy.
I know.
So, I don't know how this is going to work out. So let's take a look at the damage. I'm going to give garage puppy something to do so she can be occupied while we do this, and then we will see what's going on. Maybe I'll take some paint off her. She got a little curious when I was painting. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that and be right back. So, this first things first is we're going to need to see exactly how this is held on. I know it's not held on either side over there. I know there's a bolt on the other side here. So let's take off the filter. I'm sure this hasn't been ran for a while, so let's just get that started too. The owner of this gave me a complete and total authority to kind of do whatever is needed without having to replace the engine. Yeah, looks like there's one in there. Need an extension though. So that's good. I don't know what this is for. Odd. Unless that was for the throttle to remain high. Doesn't seem like it was loose. What else am I being hung up on here? That wasn't even for the right one. That's not even 10mm either. Let's try 12. Got it. So obviously the fuel line is going to be still there. Wow. Yeah, that tank is bad. Okay. Well, we're going to have to take off the fuel line. Which means taking this off. much gas is in here. You ever have those machines that are just a little bit under 3/4, but you kind of want to get a full 5 gallons of gas, so you pour a shot like the last half gallon, even though you don't need to, inside something, just so you can make sure to get a full 5. That's what's in there. It is brimming full. So here's the problem. I'm either going to have to drain the fuel, which I'll probably have to do anyway, or take off this cover. So I didn't really want to have to do, but I suppose we could. This riggery is kind of making that hard though. There we go. That's right, that one doesn't have one because it's broken. Double extension. Yeah, we'll find that later. Attached by the switch over here, so we're gonna let it off to the side. Still not gonna be easy. Still would have to know what this was here for. But it is a whole lot easier than it was, so I don't know, it is still kind of attached on the other side. How's that not a 10mm? See this broken piece right here? That's what is supposed to be holding the tank on. Oh, here's the other piece of the tank. So we need to find something to try to get that to sit back down. That's pretty dirty. To clean that. So after doing some research on our little problem here, I came up with a few solutions. One, it's really hard to weld. Here, let me grab you and put you in a better location. It's really going to be hard to weld anything on this because 1, it's really thin, 2, it's aluminum, 3, it's dirty aluminum. That one's not that bad, you can clean, but it still doesn't change the fact that it's aluminum. In aluminum you have to have an AC welder, and you have to know how to use that AC welder. The next idea was going to be getting some type of rubber bushing and put on here. That way, not bushing, but like a thick piece of plastic, like the legs you'd find on the bottom of a pressure washer. That just became pretty sketch. So I came up with this solution. Let me grab it. So this is the solution. I found this on Amazon for $65, I believe. It was prime, so there's no shipping, and I don't have tax. So it comes complete with the governor arm, governor gear, new bearing, new seal, oil monitor, wiring. So now this is no longer a problem. I just have to take off the crank, the piston, the head, and stuff like, you know, the exhaust and carb and all that stuff. That's not too bad. And just put it on this motor, redo the throttle, and it should be good to go. So then the next thing I came up with was on a horizontally mounted or horizontal crank engine, kind of like the ones you see on residential pressure washers or lawnmowers or stuff like that. You put RTV on here. It's like a black RTV, I believe is what Honda uses. I don't really like that idea from this style, mainly because they even come with a kit for this, for that reason. I'm still going to put, not a kit, but a gasket. I'm still going to put a little bit, just a skin on there, just to kind of help seal it. But I wanted to get a gasket kit. So, I love gasket kit. Oddly enough, gasket kit, which comes with the gasket for the sump, intake gaskets, head gasket, well, valve cover gasket, excuse me, exhaust head, and came with a brand new piston. So this is literally going to be practically a brand new motor. Not only is it a new piston, but new piston rings. The gasket kit was about $9, and then this one I think was about $15. Considering it does come with the extra piston and rings, I figured $5 for that was a steal. Now, if it's of low quality, then I'm not going to be using it. But so far, I'm pretty impressed. Let's just take a look how it fits. So far, it looks pretty good. So, the first step that I have here is I'm going to take off a lot of this stuff, like the tins. I'm going to take off the flywheel. I'm going to take off the head, the exhaust. This should just come off. And then once you undo the switch, it should just come off completely. You can take out the nut right there, take off the flywheel, governor arm, which we have to figure out what this nonsense is happening with. And then just other random stuff like the actual sensor. Does it come with an oil dip? Oh, that's on the side face. That's not actually on this. Okay. The annoying part is going to be is I don't know how this clutch is on there. It's going to be rough. I just feel it already. I have been soaking it with some oil, so hopefully it just slides right off. So first thing, I'm going to take off the cover, and then take off the bolts for the engine, which like they're different bolts. It should just come off no matter what. I mean, it's a GX160, so let me get that started. Okay, so I'm looking at this belt. It's seen better days. I looked on the internet, and usually there is a plate somewhere on machines like this that tells you what it is. This is this one. It's an MVC, that's Michael Victor Charlie 90H. It appears to be missing a belt too, so I think it might have broken off. There's this there, but that stuff went out of belt. but it's been kind of a pain to take off. So I called my local Napa area because that says we're Napa right there. I gave them this number and they said they have 2 of them, which is perfect because I just so happen to need 2. So just to make it easy, we're just going to cut this. And if worse comes to worse, I'll take this over to the auto parts store and we'll just get one. They quoted me $9 each. When you're already 80 bucks into something that costs $1,000, what's the additional 20? I mean, for 100 bucks in parts, I have a brand new, basically everything with the exception of just the actual mechanism. So I was able to get the pulley started to come off. Probably not now. I actually had to beat it back on a little bit because I wanted to take the belt off. I wasn't sure if it was going to come off. But I'm just going to use the puller and get that started and pull it off. And then once that happens, I will bring you guys back. So something you have to come to terms with if you're going to be working on small engines is that you're going to deal with some stuck clutches or adapters, blade adapters, belts. The list goes on. You kind of have to get to the point where you can learn a couple tricks. Something that I've learned that's actually been very useful is this. If you can get, like, it doesn't happen too often like this, but I was able to get about halfway and then for whatever reason it just was stuck. One, double check you don't have a set screw because you're just hurting yourself at that point. Nothing like that's happening. Put a little oil on it and pound it back on. I know it sounds horrible, but that's what you're going to want to do. At that point, you should probably be able to pull it off a lot easier because the inside of it will be lubed up with oil. So keep that in mind. Another thing you could do is just take a hammer if you're not going to damage anything. Just hit all around it, just kind of shock it, and that helps. And then if not, then we have Mr. Torch over here, kind of put some fire on there that's not going to damage anything. I had to use all 3 of those tricks, so just know that it will happen eventually, so just prepare yourself now. I'm going to take off these 4 bolts for the engine and take the engine off, start stripping it down, take the oil, put a new one on and together, and we'll put this back on. We'll have a brand spanking new engine. So I ended up having to use the air ratchet, or air hammer, there we go, as well as heating it up. I think that's a common thing that's going to happen with this. Everything's going to be heated up. So this is going to be a little warm, I would imagine. The key. Let's turn it this way. There we go. Sign in this machine. Everything's going to be difficult. is that so hard? Okay. So next we'll take off the governor assembly. It's gonna be difficult with that bar. Oh wait. You don't need to. It comes off. Let's take off of this. Does the new one have that? Yeah, okay, good. So let's just disconnect that. Connect that on the new one. And just so we don't lose track of the connections. Put this. Back on. There we go. So I'm going to take off the head, this side. I'm going to drain the oil after actually I'll do the oil first. And that should be about it. I'm going to take the side off and take the crank, bring you guys back to that. Okay. Two, three, four, 5, 6. Now we're gonna hope the gasket stays on the old block. I don't think so, but one can hope. Another one. There we go. Surprised that didn't need heat. usually after it spins, it should come off fairly easily. Man, that was harder than it rightfully should have been. The bearing kind of came out. So if we need to, we'll put it in the press, but that's pretty good actually. When you do that, you hit on the outside in this scenario because you don't want to push on anything that's not pressing against the where you're going to mount it. So now you take off all this nonsense. Let's get you over here. So that's what it looks like. There's the cam, crank. You have to take off the bolts for the piston and the rod. Probably take out these spacers. I think that one came off pretty easily, but this one is not looking too good. But yeah, I'm basically just going to transfer everything over. When I get to the timing of it, I'll bring you back, but I'm just going to be taking it apart. Pretty simple, just undo bolts. Okay, so that's all clean. Took it to the wire wheel and just wire wheeled everything together, or clean. Now, put that to the side. Have our crank, which has dirt on it. Our crank cam. This is the compression relief. So we're just going to leave that in its own towel. Okay, so I took the 4 head bolts. There's 2 on top and 2 in the center off. And then I'm going to take the head off, which should just come out with a little work. But when you take out the cam, it's going to come out with the tappets and the push rods. You want to leave those in order. For instance, I know this side is always going to be the one that's facing up. This side's the other one. So keep that in mind. Okay, these are piston ring pliers. If you don't have any, I would definitely recommend getting them because it's going to make our current job a whole lot easier. So when you get the piston and the rings, we're going to get 2 small, really thin rings, jagged, like a waffle, and then 2 compression rings. These 2 rings sandwich each other. So we're going to put this one on first, and they should be identical, so there's really no worry in mixing them up. Now to put these in there, you take your piston ring pliers, you just put them in. For whatever reason, I think we might have to clamp that more, but I'll just put it on by hand for this one. It's not impossible to do it, you just don't want to break it. These are actually kind of flexible. So that's technically the top one, even though it's first. Next is the waffle ring. This one's really good. You don't have to worry about anything on it. And granted, you don't want to completely stretch it out, but it's It's not too hard. Something I'm noticing though is it's not long enough, I don't think. It does not want to fit in there with the piston or with the rings. Let's take out the other one. This is kind of a risky run when you buy these types of kits. I might just use a stock piston. There it goes. Come on. Fit in your groove. Too good for your groove. There we go. Now, let's reattempt this one, except this time it's go from the top. And of course, they're going to get stuck in every other groove going down, but it's just one of those things. There we go. Now the next one. And you want to pay attention to the gap. The other one for the waffle ring is right here. Now it's not going to be too much of an issue for this one, but you don't want these ring gaps to be facing each other. You want them to be on opposite. So for instance, this one's right here where my thumb is. I want the other one to be on the opposite side. This one's not wanting to cooperate. And this is just a machine of difficulties, I tell you. Even the new parts are difficult. I've never had this much problems. There we go. I should rephrase that. If you've ever worked on a 5 horsepower Briggs with a racing piston, those are real fun. There we are. There we go. Oil ring set. Gap is right there. The other gap is right there. It's practically 180. Next, you're going to have these are identical. They're going to have the same lettering on it too, usually. The black one is this middle, and the silver one is going to be the top. So we're going to do this one first. Except this one we are going to use the pliers. So I think the other ones are just a little bit too thin for this plier. Where's the gap? It's right there. Don't like that amount that I was getting. Like I said, you have to be very careful with these. These are hardened, so that means they're brittle. The irony, I know. They will break. There we go. I got it started, but we'll have to finish it by hand. Or maybe we'll do it right here. The last thing I want to happen is one of these to break. There we go. And if the gaps aren't lining up, that's fine right now. But because you can go ahead and adjust them because they're not like fixed in there. I'm sure over time they'll eventually just work their way around and probably face each other eventually, but we don't want to give them any help. Okay. So this is the old one. And we need to get that pin out. So I don't know if it came with 2 wrist pins. What was that? Okay, just a piece of plastic. There we go. Now this should just slide out the other side. There we are. The arrow on this faces down. Looks to be about the same, except where is the other one? Let me find the new one. Actually, no. Let me find a new one. Whatever. For the life of me, I can't find a new one, so we're not going to use it. We will, however, use the old one. And let's put some oil on it. Probably already has oil, but doesn't even add more. What am I doing? That's the old one. Down. There we go. And the rod. Let's put a little more oil into the rod. I would hope that the reason why I'm putting oil is pretty self-explanatory, but the reason why is, well, oil prevents damage in engines, but the main reason why I'm putting it right now is because I want there to be something when it first starts. Because when you first start the engine, is when most of the wear happens, because that's when the oil is kind of stagnant. Especially when it's brand new, it's completely dry. You want something there to kind of assist the first couple minutes. There we go. I do need the other one though. I need to wash that. My hands are dirty, but and they make pliers for these pins or these clips, but I don't have one right now. And even then, I probably wouldn't have very good luck with them anyway. As you can tell by the pliers. There they are on the side. These are just little pins to hold or little clips to hold the wrist pin in. There we go. And there's at least little grooves, so they're pretty easy to tell where exactly they go. And we'll just put a little more oil on there. Take a nice cloth and wipe off the nasty. Wipe off and make sure that's all good. Okay, now we're ready to put this in. Go get my ring compressor. So this is the engine hone. Whenever you install a new piston or new rings, you want to do this. It could leave ridges in the cylinder wall. There's stones. There's 3 of them. You just take your drill and you do this. Try not to touch the thing. And like I said, that just leaves little ridges, and it just allows you to, I never have a place to put this when I'm done. Just prolongs the life of it. Now I'm going to take a towel and wipe off the inside, and then add more oil. So this is a ring compressor. It does basically what it says. Compresses rings. This might be a little bit too big of one for what I really need it for, but let's find out. A little more. Now you can attempt to use not this, but you're going to have a very hard time. Yet again, more oil. That just goes inside. Might be nice and even. The piston should go like so. And wipe off the rod. Now, crank it down. And then importantly, leave a little bit of the skirt out. Ooh, I need to oil this. Almost forgot. Yeah, this was definitely not honed when I got it. It looks a million times better after I did that. Because you don't want it smoothed. I mean, that's really not going to aid in your lubrication at all. piston is supposed to go like that. Yeah, okay. Now, take a butt end of a hammer. And there you go. And what you're hearing is when the tappets fell out. Always make sure to include your handle with that. They disappear. So now, let's put the tappet back. Still has a decent amount of oil in there, I'm not going to be concerned. And there we are. There we are. So, add a little oil to this. And there. Why does that... Oh, I think it isn't backwards. I think I put the piston in wrong. So I took the piston out, flipped the rod on it, took out the wristband and the everything, and it looks to be pretty good now. One of those mistakes that I didn't even notice I made until I made it. So this part is pretty important for this. You really want to make sure this is oiled before you do anything. Just glob it in there. And this is something you do need a torque wrench for. I'm just going to put them in by hand, potentially with this socket if I run into something that's stopping me. Like I just can't reach it, like the top one probably will be by ratchet. But that one's a little difficult sometimes. It has to be just the right. No, that's gonna be too difficult. Let's push this down. Maybe I just do it by hand. I could probably do it by hand. I don't remember what it is. I think it's like 200 inch-pounds or something like that, but we'll look it up and take a look. You want to do it in increments of like 40 or 50. You could probably get away with. We don't want to start off with 200. hands are getting too... There we go. A little more room on this side now. Okay, so that's pretty much tight. Well, as tight as I'm gonna be able to get it. Maybe just a little more. I could probably get the ratchet in there now. Like I said, this isn't the tight and this is the finish. There we go, it's sunk down. Okay, so it's the next day. I couldn't quite finish it yesterday, but got everything done. Pistons in. I just need to torque it down. Something I do want to go over. Reason why I had to redo it is this longer part of the actual rod needs to be facing down with the arrow. I somehow got it backwards when I was doing it, so I had to redo it. Probably just wasn't paying attention. Okay, so now the next step is going to be I need to torque down the connecting rod. That, according to the manual, is at 12 Newton meters or 9 foot-pounds. My torque wrench does not go to something that low, I believe, so to convert that to inch-pounds, 9 times 12, it's 108. So 108 inch-pounds on these bolts. So I'm going to go ahead and torque those down my torque wrench. So this can be a little cumbersome, but this is currently set at 50, so you don't want to go all in at 100. I think I tightened that enough by hand, maybe. Okay, this is going to take forever. Let's try the bottom one next. I at least have some room on that one. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. So that's 50. Let's go ahead and try this other one again. Maybe if the piston is in a different location. Yeah, let's try that. There we go. Since one side is torqued down pretty good, kind of gave it a lot of extra space and sunk down. So, not quite there yet. While we're on the subject of random, the marking on this cam gear on the crank is by far the worst I've seen in a long time. It's like in the middle of like two, but the favor is one side. So that's 50. Now let's go up to 80. I think technically you're supposed to go in increments of 20. It's 80. There we go. Now we want is a chicken you hear in the background. 108 is right there. I mean, again, you probably should go in a different order, but there we go. And there we are, 108. Now, let's put the taps back in, and let's find the dot. It's right there. That would be a great time for the cam. At least the cam is in, pretty good. But the gears are slotted, so it's a little hard to install, but it's not impossible. Naturally, because if it was, then it wouldn't have been done to begin with, huh? Brakes and stretching cams are by far one of the easiest things in the world to put on, and Honda clones or Hondas are not. Maybe I just don't do them enough. There we are. Okay. So like I said, it's in the middle of two, but it's favoring this one. That tooth is in there. I guess we can kind of find out. The piston is in top dead center. The cam is not touching any of the tappets. I think we're pretty good. Next, I need to put the spacers in. The push rods will go on when we put the head on. Everything seems to be working pretty good. I think we're ready for the gasket. Make it the gasket. Okay, so I put the guides in. This one, of course, was impossible to get off because it's rusted in place, but eventually worked it free. So, gasket looks like it fits pretty good. That was a concern of mine. Sometimes you buy these kits and they just don't fit. And it falls off, but we'll put it back on. Okay, gasket, you are going to be that type of gasket, aren't you? Okay, fine. Let's bend you the other way. Okay. The seal on this side is pretty much shot, I believe, so I'm going to be replacing the seal. The gasket looks like it's good to go. So it looks like it was that stupid spacer or guide that was just causing problems, like usual. And like I said, that seal is probably shot, so I'm going to replace it. It's just a lot easier to replace, in my opinion, on the engine, because I don't really have to worry too much about getting stuff everywhere and stuff like that. For safety purposes, let's close the end off. Before we do anything, let's turn the crankshaft and see what happens. Seems pretty good. There's a torque spec for this, but I'm just going to do it slowly. Okay, now tighten, tighten. Okay, now we should be ready for the head. Let's wipe that off. We need to put the head on. What am I doing? So, unfortunately, when I was taking the head off, one of the spacers that goes in here fell, so I need to go find it. Cleaned off the mating surface on the head. Let me put the head gasket. There we go. And just need to line up the bolts. There's 2 of them in there right now. And yet again, there's definitely a torque on this, but I'm not going to be tightening it down with the impact. I just want to sink it down. That's sunk down. That's sunk down. This is a 12mm, by the way. Now, if you're going to be modifying this engine, which I'll be doing a video on very shortly, not this one, but one just very similar to it, before you put the head on, you'd obviously be doing a whole lot more head work. So, now we can put the rod in. Actually, no, we still need to tighten it down entirely. Let's clean it up a little bit. You don't want to adjust your valves until your head is all the way sunk down. There will be a change in height. I should have cleaned this off, but it seems to be doing fine. Just don't knock anything off in there. And has an extra precaution. So let's see here. What's the torque rating for that? Here we go. Connecting rod. Cylinder head bolts are at 17 foot-pounds. So 17. I probably could do that with my normal torque wrench. But 17 times 12 is 204 inch-pounds. So I'm not going to show that the same thing as was before. Just do 204. So I did a little bit higher. It's kind of hard to get 4. So I just did 205. That shouldn't be a problem. And even then, I'm sure the difference in calibration is going to be coming into play by the time you start to really get into that amount of numbers. Now we put connecting rods in. Not connecting the push rods. If I could see. There we go. So this is the hard part. You have to loosen this up, which we're going to have to redo the valve timing anyway. Or not timing, but the spacing. Or you can just press down and hope for the best. There we go. Actually wasn't too bad. This one has a cap. There we go. Okay, so if we spin this, we should see them move. That's good. That's good. Just gonna go the other way. And there we go. Okay, so we're set on that. I have videos on how to adjust your valves, so I'm not going to do that, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the exhaust to 0.06, the intake to 0.05, and then bring it back. Yeah, why not? Besides, I made a mistake when I said 0.05. It's actually 4 thousandths. So it's not a top dead center, but that's fine. This one should be good. So let's do the exhaust first, because that one seemed to be easiest. So that one's at a 6. Maybe that spacer was supposed to go on the other side. Let me switch them, see what feels the difference. Okay, so I have to put that on there. For whatever reason, I thought this was supposed to have 2, but I only had 1 when I got it, so that's how many it's going to have when I return it. I make this a whole lot harder, I can tell already. There we are. Much better. So right now the intake is open, so the exhaust should be ready. This is at 6 thousandths. Definitely could be loose or tightened. Let's see what the intake looks like. Six thousandths is actually pretty good on that one, so I think they both need to be adjusted. So I forget if that's a 10 millimeter. It is. Wow, it's on there too. I think it might be seized on there. Well, let's do it this way. Well, that's the same way. So I've ever adjusted these before. I can break it, but where we want to. This is not the best way of adjusting them, but if they're stuck, you might as well just use that to your advantage. I'm sure there's someone shaking their head out there and whatnot, but if it works, it works. It could be a little tighter. Besides, this is a very generic how-to video. This is more or less me showing you how it's done and telling you how it should be done. Because I guarantee you, if you go to any small engine shop, it's probably done the exact same way I'm doing it now. Because think about it, these guys, or women I suppose, where I live at least, have a 3-month backlog. It's like it gets loose and tight, loose and tight. It's tight again. Let's just do that much, see what happens. It's still tight. That's pretty good. Okay. Compression stroke. It definitely has some. There we go. Whew. Yeah, that's a tad on the loose end. But that's also only 4 thousandths. Let's do our 6 thousandths. And these are cold. That doesn't help our scenario. I'll adjust these again when I let it run a little bit. It's definitely getting better. Maybe just like a hair tighter. I like that. Okay. Now we just make sure there's no crap anywhere. I'll just put some lubrication in here. That's really not too much of an importance, to be honest. It's just kind of like something I like to do. Can never be wrong with too much lubrication. So this next part brings up a point I want to lay across. When you do something like this, don't get just like a head gasket, don't just get the sump gasket or anything. Just get the whole gasket kit, because you don't really know which one are going to break. And if you're doing this much work, you might as well just replace them all. Point in case is the valve cover gasket, when I took it off, came off in pieces. So this is not the style of engine like the other Hondas where they just use RTV. This actually uses a gasket. So that's important that you use that gasket. Right now I'm just cleaning the head real quick. Okay, so now we have our head gasket here. New head gasket installed. Looking pretty good. Well, it looks dirty, but it looks good when putting it on. These are just your standard 10 millimeters. After this, I'm going to clean the carburetor because it probably needs it. All of them need it. I'm not going to show that one though because I've shown that a million times and this video is already probably like an hour and a half long. Setting to low. Let's try medium now. There we go. It's good medium. There you have it. We are almost done. I'm just going to change the seal out real quick. Like I said, I think it's easier this way. So I'm going to do that. There's also a shield that goes down here that's really annoying if you forget about it at this stage, so I'm going to put that on. And we should be good. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just do everything I did like I did in reverse. Put everything back together. And then next time you see this, hopefully it will be on a running plate compactor. Okay, so this has been a journey. I do not have the belts on this. I bought 2 new ones. I don't have the clutch on it as well. I just want to see how it's going to run. Let it run a little bit without it. Then put the belts on, put the cover back on, which you see on the side. And go from there. Should have oil in it, about 20 ounces. Gas, as you can tell, nice and secure now. New plug, new air filter. I'm going to pull it over very slowly. I might just take the spark plug out. The 13/16, and just kind of pull it over and add a little oil down the cylinder too. It's been a few days. And of course that bar is just going to be making everything difficult. Oh, it's still on 6. So the reason why it's a few days is I was going to get the governor installed. I quickly found out that it didn't have a spring. So I went to go see how much a spring was. It's like $9 or $10. And a whole governor arm assembly, including the springs, brand new, was 11 or 12. I'll put a link in the description below, but I figured why not just have a whole brand new governor arm system. I also made a video on how to install and adjust that, mainly to adjust, so check that one out if you need to adjust to your governor. So let's get some oil. And like I said, the reason why I'm doing this is I just want to oil up the key components again before we let it go. Let's turn the choke off. Okay, so it will smoke a decent amount when I first turn it on, because I just put oil down the cylinder. I'm telling you, this bar is just making everything difficult on this. It's a pretty common thing though. Okay, it's good to go now. I don't like to start these spark plugs with impact. So now, fingers crossed, everything should be tightened, everything should be good to go. The fuel's on, choke is on, throttles, let's say that's about halfway right there. 3. Switch on. Let me adjust that governor one more time. Okay, so I found out the spring was being pinched by the bolt that holds on the recoil cover. So, got that done. Put everything back together. Everything should be tight. Let's see what happens. On, let's say no choke, but we have it on idle. Let's try that. I like that a lot. Okay, so like I said, it's going to be burning off a bunch of crap here soon. But, it should be good to go. So, we're going to put the new belts on. Put the cover back on, it should be set. Okay, so what I was doing is I was adjusting the high-speed screw. It was running a little bit too high. You have to adjust it when you put a new governor on as well. Well, new plate at least. So yeah, looks like it's good to go. If you have any questions, comment below. If you have any concerns, comment below. If you like what you see, definitely put a thumbs up and subscribe. I'll see everyone later. Have a good night.